As a coffee drinker, I'd rather choose a healthy alternative that gives long-lasting energy and helps burn fat. Instead of worrying about extra shots of espresso, the coffees I drink intensifies your metabolism and energizes the body. Keto coffee contains MCT oil, grass-fed butter, and collagen. And Skinny Brew coffee is a vegan-based coffee that improves focus and concentration with 6 brain-boosting nootropics. Try the good stuff. Try the healthy stuff. What's happening, blues people? Remember, we are still in the midst of a crowdfunding campaign for the African American Folklorist newspaper. Go to the Indiegogo campaign. You can also find it on the African American Folklorist website, or look down in the description box where you'll get a link to the campaign. Your donations allow us to service our readers with articles about traditions, traditional beliefs, the cultural context, geographical locations, musics, and vernaculars of African Americans and the role each element plays in the lives of the people past and present. And don't forget, April 23rd is our benefit concert entitled Black Folk Narrative, with performances by Piedmont Blues acoustic duo Marquise Knox and Corey Harris. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, blues people? I'm excited. I'm always excited when I'm interviewing somebody or when I'm belting them blues, but I'm particularly excited right now because this sister not only surprised me, but shared something with me that I really have been trying to push. And when I heard her song, You Let Your Mama Down, and I heard bars, I said, oh. So I'm a little excited about this because there's a lot of, how can I say this, intertwining with our traditional music. So let's just jump right into it. Let me introduce to you a woman's blues that you already know, Miss Melody Angel. What's happening, sis?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. I know that was a mouthful, but when see, I'm a big believer and I'm a big pusher of hip hop is the great grandchild of the blues, right? And I push that. I equate the way I get that number, great, is between me and my grandfather when he was born and when I was born. So when I heard this song and saw the video, and then I saw you start spitting, I was just like, oh my God, because, you know, I don't know how many people understand these things are connected.
Right.
So
that's really why I did it. Like, I don't consider myself a rapper, but I wanted to do a couple of things, but I wanted mostly to show the youth that the blues was the first hip hop. The storytellers were the blues men, just like now it's Biggie Smalls and Jay-Z and Tupac. You know, they told the story of what we were going through. And I just wanted to pay homage to it and kind of open up their minds to that being something that maybe they could do, you know, as like, you know, real rappers. You know what I mean? Like maybe you can infuse blues into your hip hop and not leave it behind.
Well, before we get into your story, I just have to say, you could have fooled me because you had bars. That's why I keep saying that. And the style and the flow was, because I come out of hip hop. Before I knew I was a bluesman, I was an MC. And me and my brother and our friends, we were putting that lyrical work in, as they say. So when I heard you, it doesn't sound like you were just somebody said, you know what, let me just use this expression. It sounds like you've been doing this sometime.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. At first I was like, oh shoot, what I'm gonna do with this? But if it didn't flow right, if it didn't feel good, then I wasn't gonna use it. But I really enjoyed it. So I just kept it going. I mean, you know, you never know what you can do till you try.
That is also true. So now, with that being said, let's jump into your story. A Chicago native.
That's right. Southside. in the city and the suburbs. I've lived all over the South Side, but yeah.
How did those experiences in those communities in your upbringing, I hate to use the word influence, but for lack of a better term right now, influence you as a blues woman? First of all, do you consider yourself a blues woman, or do you consider yourself an artist who expresses the blues in multiple genres?
I think I've always just considered myself an artist because I love rock and funk and blues and hip hop and soul. And I never wanted to be held in a box, but I wanted the base of my sound to be the blues. So it's always in there. There's always some blues riffs or some chord progressions that lead back to the blues, because I think it's literally the base of all American music. And so if it's a part of your overall sound, you're always gonna sound good. That's how I think of it.
So is it safe to say that concept, right, that school of thought comes from your experiences and your upbringing and your family and tradition in Chicago?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it goes back to, my grandparents, my great aunts and uncles, and everything they were listening to. So you have all these generations that, when they were young, they partied to the blues men. And then, my mom, they listened to soul and funk, and so all of that was in my life. There was jazz, there was bebop, and just so much. And then like funk. And then Chicago has its own blues style, which is a whole thing that I got into as well. So I think because this city is so full of music, I mean, house music started here. So it's just like so much music going on, and the high level of musicianship that is here as well. It just impacted my life.
So let's take it to the beginning, right? When you got the guitar.
Yeah.
And then from that point to going into the blues.
So I got the guitar when I was 15, and, we didn't have money for guitar lessons. I think I went on one guitar lesson. It was like $10 for 30 minutes, and I didn't learn anything. And I was like, yo, that was a lot of money for me. So I started going on YouTube and just trying to listen to guitar players. I watched them, and I just started playing by ear. And after a year, I started my first band, and we started doing shows. And the first places that kind of did live music were blues clubs. So I went to, or local lounges, you know what I mean? Like those are the places that had little stages you could perform. So I started doing that, and I would go in, and my mom would come with me so I could get in, and they'd put a little band on my wrist, and I performed and do the whole thing. But yeah, I just kind of grew into the guitar. I was still learning how to play the guitar when I was doing shows. So I literally just jumped in because I waited so long to get one. I wanted one since I was 7, but it took a while. Just financially for that to be possible. So once I got it, I just never stopped.
Well, you know what? That's a good segue. I want to sidestep a moment because we all share that particular story, because after a certain time when they took music out of school, and even in my youth, when music was like an elective, you still had to pay extra, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's even hard to say because right now I'm so happy to see so many black folk with guitar, males and females, but do you think the lack of that we were seeing and the plethora of white kids growing up playing is because we couldn't afford the lessons? Do you think that plays a major part?
I definitely do. I mean, not even just the lessons, but the instrument themselves and the upkeep and, do you have money to get strings? Like that kind of stuff. Like sometimes I didn't. So now what? I got like 4 strings instead of 6 for a little while till I can get the other 2. I mean, so there's so many things that play into it. And also we're not even pushed in that direction. Like they get lessons when they don't even want lessons.
Right.
And it's a bunch of Black kids that's just like, man, they would jump at the chance to get that opportunity. So, but lucky for us, I believe that music just it's in our veins because we created all these genres. So I always tell when I go to schools to play and to show them about music and everything, I always tell them you can do this. You can figure this out on your own. It's not impossible. It's harder, but you'll be a better musician for it in the long run. And you'll be able to create things, improv and build. That's how these new genres even came to be because we were just sitting there improvising, and that's how jazz started. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's just like it's harder, but everything's harder. It's systemically harder. Every aspect of your life is going to be harder, and it's a shame though that it's not more in schools because I think it could really help a lot of kids just have something to do.
Absolutely. Now, besides looking you up and doing my investigation so I would have an idea what I'm talking about, just in your answers in these initial, questions, I hear a heavy sense of activism coming from you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been I think I was probably 13 when I went to my first march. And not that a march is anything to say, oh, I'm an activist because I went to a, but it's just that kind of community and hearing people chant and hearing people speak on the issues that affect your life. It really impacted me and showed me that we can make a difference step by step if we keep working together and trying to get people to unite. I mean, I commute. That's my whole. I know other people are out here trying to change hearts and minds, and I get it and I understand it. But my focus is on my people, is on us uniting, is on us helping each other succeed, rebuilding our own communities, watching out for each other against all harm, even if it is the police. Like, we need to, on some level, be a little insular and take care of each other and build each other up. And that is my focus as far as activism goes.
So, with that being said, which I agree, right, wholeheartedly on all of the above, your music as well. A lot of musicians, or let me actually be more specific. A lot of performing musicians that either are or want to headline, who are either solo or lead, don't like getting into political and religious and community conversations because they're afraid that will harm their business with the promoters, right?
Right.
But
Right.
you have some real strong and specific song titles and songs.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're not playing around. I really dig this. Your current album, if I'm not mistaken, your current album, She Black.
Right.
Let's talk about that because that's what I would like to call Tough City.
Okay. From when you talk about artists, making that choice, I think that you have to be called to do these types of things. You have to look at who you are and say, am I the type of person that fights for others or just focuses on myself? And there's nothing wrong with either one. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I'd rather an artist be genuine about it. If it's not in their heart, then they need to leave it alone. But for me, it is in my heart. And my focus in music is just so happens to be based in activism a little bit, because I write about my life. I just write about my life and the things that happen to me. Is it my fault that half or majority of the things that happen to me are racist or have some systemic racism involved in my everyday life? That is a fact. It is in my everyday life. So if I am a storyteller of the things that occur in my life, what can you say about that? Am I supposed to ignore this whole side that I have to deal with and just sing about love and friends and all of that good stuff? It's just not real. That's not real to me. And She Black, I wrote it in tears. And I just want to say that because it was maybe a month after Breonna Taylor was murdered. And I was just sitting in my room in quarantine, and I heard the song in my head, and I started trying to figure it out on guitar. And I just pressed record to try to get my ideas out, and I started singing the chorus. And I mean, it just shook me to my core. I was being in that moment as honest as I've ever been about how I was feeling. Because the only reason why Breonna Taylor is not here is because she was Black. The only reason why Sandra Bland is not here today is because she was Black. And everybody can say all of the little excuses or whatever. And even if this happened to another race, the people who murdered them would be in jail, and there would be no hesitation. There would be no argument or fight. And it's only different because she's Black. And it's just such a hard pill to swallow for Black women, that we are not protected, that we have to protect ourselves. Somehow we have to just look around every corner, and nobody wants to live like that. So there's some frustration and anger involved. I wanted to be honest about how I was feeling. You go into a job interview and they look at you like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to really hire an angry Black woman. It's like, what? You know, you're judged before you open your mouth, before you hand them the resume, you know, and you learn it from when you're a little girl. It's not something that just waits for you when you turn 18. Teachers, white teachers, have treated me like garbage throughout my childhood. And they were my first interaction with white people. And they didn't like me. And if I had questions or said, well, what does that mean? And I don't really get, sit down, shut up, be quiet. You know what I mean? So
I do.
It's a long life, and it is exhausting. And a lot of people will say, oh, how dare you just blame everything on being Black. It's not about me. It's not about blaming. I'm speaking facts to you. You want to pretend like systemic racism isn't a real thing that affects lives every single day? That's on you, but it doesn't change it from being a fact, not an opinion or a political stance. And that's what the song is about.
Hard body, as we say. Do you find, because you mentioned the treatment of Black women, right? And I mean, you detailed it very well. And I have to ask you this because, you know, I grew up, my mama had an afro, right?
Okay.
And I had similar experiences with teachers growing up as you did. So within the last few years, I'll say 5 to be safe, but you and I both know this was longer than 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. But it became a popular culture controversy, to say the least. Hair in professional settings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you get pushback? Is it celebrated? Is this just you're just natural, or is this your, I'm letting you know this is me. I don't care what y'all think. What talk to us about that lovely afro.
Okay. I went natural back in 2013, 14, and it took a while, just to get fully natural. It took about a year or two. But when I did, immediately the industry, a lot of industry people that were not Black, we'll just say, wanted me to go back to my straight hair. They were immediately intimidated by it, immediately just like, what are you doing? This is a lot. What's going on? I always wanted to go natural. When I was a little girl, I was really interested in the 60s and the movement that was going on in the 60s. I kind of was a little historian. I was at the library every weekend reading about Angela Davis and Fred Hampton. So I was enthralled in it. And one of the things that really captured me was how beautiful I thought the afro was. I just thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I just wanted my hair to do that, And I said to myself, when I'm old enough to do my own thing with my hair, I'm growing it out and I'm going to get me an afro. I've always wanted. So, for me, it's like this beautiful crown that I get to wear. And it makes me feel good. And I'm never changing it. It will never go. It's going to turn gray. And I have been, and like I said, it's one thing for a lot of people say, I'm going to stand by my convictions. But when people walk up to you, when people in the industry say, you're not going to get this job because of the way you look, or you're not going to go on this tour, or you're not going to get that show, blah, 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 blah. And you still say, I don't care. That's when you can say I stand by my convictions. And I totally do. I have literally lost money or opportunity or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if they're opportunities, if it's based upon my hair. And it's really, you're just intimidated by my hair at that point, right? So I don't have time for that. But I do what I do. It's not changing. I do what I want, period.
I dig that. And that's another good segue, right? Because in the scheme of what could be considered or what's called the dominant culture, we're talking 2 strikes, right? Black and a woman. And then the third strike, which would be the natural crown.
Right.
So with that setup, how is it navigating this particular industry, specifically, even when it comes to the Black space, a male-dominated industry? What's that experience like?
Well, first of all, it's been said to me so many times, and people just don't even believe me when I say it, but it has been said to me so many times, I can't count, that if I was a white girl, my career would be totally different right now, and the opportunities for me would be completely different. And you have people that, I'll play, especially when you play guitar, it's like the totem pole is white males, then black males, then white girls, and then black women. And even if you are a black woman that plays, it is so rare for you to get a compliment or for people to say, "Oh, you're a really great guitarist." They're like, "Oh, she's all right," or what. I mean, the way you're even judged in comparison to everybody else is unbelievable. You could play the same exact song. Like for me, I cover Jimi Hendrix stuff on the regular. And still they'll be like, well, she's really just like a singer, or, she's mostly a singer, or I mean, they just don't want to give me an ounce of anything as a guitar player. It's very rare. And when you're out trying to get shows and this and that, you get paid the least amount of money. Everything, you get put on stage at a certain time when ain't really nobody around. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to be in this, they kind of put it to you like, well, you just got to take what we give you or leave it. And every now and then somebody bigger in the industry would just kind of pluck me out and be like, oh, you're incredible. I'm going. Like the Byron Bay Blues Festival in Australia, the head of that, Peter Noble, he literally saw a video of my song In This America and just called me up and invited me to play. And when I got that gig, everybody was running around like, how did she get that gig? How did she get in there? Yeah, I mean, because every door is slammed in your face. So when you do get something off of your sheer talent alone, just inspiring somebody and they just wanted to see you on their stage, that's the only way you move forward. You have to just every now and then find somebody that's not judging you for being a black woman. And that's literally just judging your art, your music, your sound. And it's rare, but when it happens, you got to jump on it and do the best you can and try to get it to lead you to other things. And that's how I've been able to stay in this business. It's just when when I get those opportunities to be in front of a person, whether they're white, black, or whatever, that's just looking at me and saying, you're talented, I go for it all the way.
So are you an independent artist? Do you put your own stuff out? Do you produce your own things? Do you run your own business?
Yeah, I have everything is my own label, publishing, everything. And it's the only way you would have ever heard of me. And it's definitely the only way you would have heard the music that I put out. Because anytime I've tried to work with other companies or whatever, this is definitely not the sound or the lyrical content that they want to distribute. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, even with that, I have to say, and I would like you to chime in, it is actually time that we own our own, right? Considering the amount of black musicians that other people's grandchildren are still eating off those people's intellectual
That's
properties.
Right. I explain how to start your own publishing company to anybody who will listen. Because at the end of the day, when your music is used for a movie or a commercial, or you hear it on the radio or whatever, you're supposed to get that money. That is your art. But if you don't own the publishing rights and some other entity owns it, then they're the ones that are going to be making money off of you for generations to come. So even if you do have a record deal, you can have your own publishing. You can negotiate that. So I always tell people this, that's the key, to have your own publishing. Sam Cooke said he was back in the day, he was the first one telling black people, because before him, like all the older blues dudes, they don't own nothing. It's making some dude that runs a record label, Rich, and his children's children, and so forth and so on. So Sam Cooke came and said, "Hey, y'all, I got my own publishing." And they were like, "What?" And he spread the knowledge. And that's what we just have to do. We, one by one, just tell everybody that's making music, go on BMI.com or ASCAP, pay $50 or $100. I don't know what it is now because I've had mine for a long time. But you go on there, you sign up, and get your publishing name. Period. Producers too, because their music gets stolen all the time. I tell them, you putting it out on YouTube, okay, I get it. You're trying to get exposure, but you need to copyright and publish your material because some big producer gonna hear it, take it, and run with it, and you gonna be sitting there looking crazy.
Definitely. So let's get to your albums, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, this is your fourth album?
Well, this is my third album. I put out an EP.
Okay.
I put out an EP as well, a woman's blues EP. And I put out another EP too. So this is my third full-length album.
So what's your process like?
My process usually starts with whatever the first song is. Like I'll get in a groove. For me, if I write a song, I'm on such a high that I usually write like a bunch of songs right after it. And I start getting to this songwriting groove. That's what I call it. And then like a bunch of songs come out of that. Like for this album, I was in quarantine. So I literally had like 60 songs. It was out of control. And so I had to bring that all the way down and try to formulate an album. But I was writing every day because it was just fun. And once the groove is over, you know it because you start making up something and be like, oh, this is whack. Okay, it's gone. Let's stop.
So now, I see you have the Honorable James Baldwin and Marcus Garvey behind you.
No doubt.
Do any of these, I guess you could say legends, right? And Fannie Mae as well. I see her as well. Does their spirit, does their ancestry seep into your music at all?
Definitely. I learned so much about myself through reading the things that they either wrote or said, watching videos. I mean, I always tell people, I thank God for YouTube because when I was a kid going into the computer lab and getting to see Fannie Lou speak, like seeing her physically instead of just a picture in a book, I was like, wow, look at this one. She has no fear. Do you know how dangerous her everyday life was? I think she was in more danger than anybody I have seen in the civil rights movement. And that includes Martin Luther King because he had a lot of people around him.
Correct.
Fannie Lou was like in the South having meetings at night. The Ku Klux Klan was always looking for her. Sometimes they found her, beat her. And she still kept going, no hesitation. She never stopped, even when she got sick, you know. And so when you read about that and see that, I know that whatever I'm going through, it's not as bad as what they went through. And so I am going to continue to fight. So they are a part of that motivation inside of me. And then also the things they said are so relevant today because so much has not changed. So that kind of sparks my fire as well. Like, man, we got to get further along here.
Exactly. And, you know, that's also a good segue because there's one thing to be retro in your style, right? We all take the things from the past in one way or another, right?
Right.
But then you have exploitation, right? Where some folks, labels and organizations, and sometimes it's the individual, but they try to make these musicians, particularly blues musicians, look like 1920, 1869 cotton field type thing. Though a lot of the older things, like you said, are still prevalent today, what would you suggest or think is a good marriage medium to bring that past style and issues current with the sensitivity of not looking like we're picking cotton right now, which we're really not, even though things are similar? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. I think that we have to take more chances in that idea of, oh, Black people don't want to hear the blues, so we're not gonna do a festival in this Black neighborhood, or we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna go to this club that usually plays R&B or whatever. I can honestly say that I've played in every rock, every R&B and hip hop club in this city at least once. And every time I go in there, I do a blues song, I do some Jimi Hendrix, and then people love it. I think that we have to take more chances and get Black people more involved in the blues and listening to the blues and knowing that it's still there for them, because it's really like the white power players in the industry that are pushing that image of what a blues man is supposed to look like, of what a blues woman is supposed. They're the ones making the rules because they're the ones listening to it right now. So I think we need to stretch out when we have a soul and R&B show in the city or in your city, wherever it is. Also have some blues people come out, because it is enjoyable. I have never in my life seen a crowd that's Black and I come out and play some blues that didn't love it. So either you have to believe that if they get the access to it, because good music is good music.
That is true.
It don't have a genre. If it sound good, it's enjoyable, period. Like, it's not hard. We can have festivals with hip hop, R&B, jazz, blues. We could do it all. It's all ours.
That is true.
Created it. So why can't we infuse some of these festivals and shows and tours with different genres of music so that we can create the image of what the blues man looks like? Maybe the new blues man is in a real nice suit. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he got baggy jeans on. I don't know. But we could decide for ourselves if we just decided to give some time to the blues. Put them on the same stages with your R&B acts and your hip hop acts. Well, people will love it.
And it's interesting you said that, because it is, unfortunately, some of, not all, and more people are opening up, more Black folk are opening up, but the Black decision makers and gatekeepers kind of keep the blues out of. I was told by a few of these gatekeepers, and not only that, Black awards, right?
Yeah.
I'm if anywhere, the blues should be on Black awards.
You would think, because at the Grammys, most of the time it goes to some white dude that's playing the blues. You know what I'm saying? So then they usually had the same. I mean, you know how it is. So
yeah.
You would think that Black people would open their doors to all of the genres in which they created. It shows a lack of knowledge on your history. How is it that you are the NAACP awards and there's no blues award for anybody. How? And that leads back to knowing your history.
Yeah.
It is ours. Jazz, it's ours. R&B, soul, funk, hip hop, country is ours.
Rock and roll.
We created that too. Rock and roll, bluegrass. Every genre of American music is Black American music. And it should have a place at our award shows.
No, I fully agree.
We're not going to be celebrated. We're not going to be celebrated anywhere else.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I mean, you hit on several important points. One I would like to dive into, if we can dive into, because, pretty much we're expressing this through the whole show, but knowing the history, right? Because there are Black folks that think blues is slave music, which is unfortunate. I'm not saying this condescending, in condescension, but it's almost as if, well, it's not almost as if, I'm going to call it what it is. The narrative has been told incorrectly. So a lot of our people are starting to learn, but don't know it's not even a slave music. They think it's a slave music, which is a turnoff. So what do you suggest about that?
Well, first of all, even if it was, slaves are the most incredible human beings in the history of America. What they survived should be respected. We are only here because of the pain and the suffering that they went through. So even having an association to slaves like, oh, I don't want to, that is disrespectful for so many reasons. But that comes from thinking that slaves were weak and stupid, which is the narrative that is pushed upon us since we were little kids in school, which is a lie. You're talking about people who, they learned a language they didn't know. They learned how to work and cook, and they invented things. They were incredible. So the association to slave times being negative is just, it's awful. It just shows how much we don't know about ourselves still. And then the blues came after we were freed. But they still were going through this horrible time because they were really free only on paper, because they were still poor. They were getting paid 2 cents for working all day. They didn't own any land. Everything got taken away from them. So even when they were supposedly free, they were struggling and going through a pain that you couldn't imagine. So they made music to either show their pain, share their pain, or lift people up and get us dancing and going, give us something to be happy about and to enjoy. That's what they brought to the world. And from that format, all the other genres were made, because every other genre has songs. Alternative rock has songs about pain, but they also have songs that make you dance. Hip hop has songs about pain. You can listen to DMX slipping and be like, man, that is just full of his pain. He's telling you, right? And then you can listen to, Queen Latifah and just be dancing, or Naughty by Nature, Hip Hop Hooray. You know what I'm saying? So every genre use this foundation of pain and joy and expressing it through song. And that came from the blues.
That's right. And I agree. So let me ask you this as we begin to wrap up, because you said early on, you started performing even before you fully, well, I don't like to say fully know your instrument, because you are a master, don't get me wrong, but
I had some chords. I had chords. I was playing rhythm when I
right.
started.
So what would you tell, and I hear this often, right? And I mean, I lived by that for 3 years. I had 3 songs and I played those 3 songs everywhere I went.
Hey.
But what would you tell, or what would be your encouragement along those lines for the people who are, they want to perform, but they're waiting until they're great or perfect? What would you tell them?
I would say that the only way to get better as a performer is to be on stage. You can sit in your room for years and years and years and practice every day, but there is no substitute for stepping on that stage, feeling that energy, and then performing in front of other people. And then also playing with other musicians. The combination of being on an actual stage and playing with other people is the only way you will ever get better. And you have to have courage, because you can't be focused on, oh, I messed up here. Oh, I should have did this, or I should have did. It's a learning experience. You have got to put yourself out there and know, yeah, you're going to mess up sometimes. It's not going to be great sometimes, but sometimes it's going to be awesome. And then you're going to really get better and do some show where you get a standing ovation, and you're like, all right. It has to happen on the stage. And then how you make yourself feel more comfortable about performing is practicing. So you get a gig, and start slow. If you want to just do 1 gig a month, then give yourself time to practice. You practicing leading up to, you do the show. Then next month you do another show. Then do 2 shows a month. You know what I'm saying? Put yourself out there, and that's how you know if you really want to do this too. Because if you're not having fun once you get up there, then this isn't for you. Like, it's okay to be nervous right before you get on. Everybody has nerves and stuff. But once you start performing, it should all float away and you should just be having a good time.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I dig what you stand for and your music. Oh, wait a minute. You can't get away without speaking about this. You have a documentary.
I do. It's called Black Girl Rock, and it's basically my story from my beginnings up till now, or a few years ago. Yeah.
What inspired it? Where can the people find it? Did you direct it, produce it? Give us the scoop.
Well, I made it myself. It was my first attempt at a documentary, and I just it was my way of controlling the narrative that had to do with me. I didn't want anybody giving out some story or image of me that wasn't real. I wanted to be able to tell my own story and allow people who were fans of mine to know how I grew up and how I got to where I am and the struggles that came along with that. The documentary is on my website, melodyangelmusic.com, and it's also on YouTube. Just look up Black Girl Rock, and it's narrated by my favorite writer, James Baldwin. And I say narrated because I use a lot of his quotes throughout the documentary, and it's his voice talking. And it's like, just showing all the lessons I've learned from him and how incredible I think he is. He had a lot to do with who I've become, especially as an activist.
And there's a activist activity you partake in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but because we are Facebook friends, and you've been doing a lot of running.
I have. Today marks 308 days that I've been running 3 to 5 miles for Breonna Taylor. Until we get justice for Breonna Taylor, I will run every single day. And it's just it's a daily reminder when people say, oh, it's not that bad. oh, it's not that bad. Well, an innocent human being got murdered 300, and I've been running for 308 days and she still has no justice. So it is that bad when an innocent person can be murdered by 3 police officers and nothing be done about it except they lost their job. And then you file charges against somebody shooting into the apartment of somebody else, but not into her. So, I mean, the hypocrisy and the racism involved in the case is astounding. And I know a lot of people didn't think I was going to just continue to run, but that's just because they don't know me very well. So,
but they finding out, huh?
They are finding out. And I will every single day remind you and everybody else that is anywhere near my Instagram page or Facebook that Breonna Taylor still has no justice.
Well, please share your Instagram and Facebook and social media handles for the good folks. I'll also have it in the description.
Oh, yeah. My Instagram is Melody Angel Music. My Facebook, just look up Melody Angel. Twitter, Melody Angel. YouTube, Melody Angel TV. My website is melodyangelmusic.com.
And that's your real name. That's not...
That is my real name. Yep, it's on my birth certificate.
Well, thank you, sis. It's been a joy rapping with you.
Yes, I'm very glad we got to do this.
Yes, and for the blues people, you heard it here. Unfortunately, you didn't hear it here first, but it's okay. You heard it here anyway. Make sure you go follow her, go get her music. And if you want to learn about activism or better yet, publishing, because if you making intellectual properties and ain't getting your money off it, then there's a problem. You should also hit up Sister Melody too.
Yep.